If you get a calendar invite on a Tuesday morning for a 15-minute quick sync, your standard emergency fund is not going to save you. Look, the only thing you need to learn today is how to build a financial firewall before that happens, and absolutely, under no circumstances, touch your 401k.
Because, those 15 minutes, they are brutal. Your camera gets cut off mid-sentence, your badge stops working, and suddenly you're just sitting in your car with a cardboard box holding a picture of your kids.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere, and the old rules are just gone.
I'm Lynn.
And I'm Frank. Welcome to Talk and Wonder. We create easy-to-understand whiteboard animations covering family finance, investing, passive income, and debt management.
Our goal is to break down complex financial topics, help you avoid traps, and build wealth together. If you want to secure your future, you are exactly in the right place.
So, let's talk about the reality right now. People hear the news, and the number they keep repeating is, 4.3% unemployment?
Right, which sounds normal, like totally fine.
Exactly. It sounds like 2018. But that number is hiding a completely different animal underneath. Because what they don't tell you is that hiring, actual hiring, has collapsed down to 3.1%.
Wait, 3.1? Isn't that like pandemic levels?
Tied with April 2020, literally the month the entire economy was shut down. We're back there.
Wow. Okay, so companies aren't necessarily firing everyone left and right. They just quietly shut the door.
Economists call it let me get the phrase right, the low-hire, low-fire equilibrium.
That is such a polite way of saying something incredibly depressing.
Right? It basically means if you have a job, keep it, because job openings have plummeted. We're talking 12 million down to under 7 million. Meanwhile, there are over 7 million unemployed Americans looking for work.
Meaning, wait, there are more unemployed people looking for work than there are actual open jobs?
For the first time since 2021, you could give every single open job to an unemployed worker, and some of them would still be stuck with nothing. Which brings us to a guy I know. Let's call him David. 38, software engineer, makes about $140K a year.
Which sounds great, but with a wife, 2 kids, and a suburban mortgage, that money goes fast.
Exactly. He's only got about $9K in savings, and David is about to find out that everything he knows about job hunting is basically a black hole now. He thinks he's just going to update his LinkedIn, apply to a few places, and get a call.
But it's not that simple anymore, is it? Like, how bad is the application process now if the doors are actually closed?
Oh, it's brutal. So David spends the first week doing what everyone does, right? He updates his resume, tells himself he's just taking a few days to reset.
Yeah, you need that mental break.
Sure, but by week 2, he's applied to 78 jobs. By week 5, he's heard back from exactly 3 of them.
Oof.
And 2 of those, automated rejections. So he starts calculating this massive application funnel, which, well, the rest of us just call it the slow onset of existential dread.
Because he's putting all that energy out there and getting literally nothing back. But wait, 78 applications and only 3 responses? That feels insane.
It is, because back in 2016, you could send maybe 15 applications and land an interview. Even in 2023, it was closer to 42. Today, the number's hovering around 100 applications for every single interview.
100? Frank, stop. You have to send out 100 resumes just to get someone on the phone?
For white-collar roles like David's, yes. LinkedIn actually reported that hiring for jobs paying over $125K fell by 32% in a single year. The average job search right now is 25.7 weeks.
Wait, that's almost 6 months.
Not 6 weeks, 6 months. And here's the part that will actually make you sick. Out of those 78 jobs David applied to, about 43 of them, nobody ever even saw his resume.
What do you mean nobody saw it? He submitted it.
Screened out by AI. An algorithm rejected him before a human ever laid eyes on his application.
Oh my God, I'd be so angry. You spend hours tweaking your resume for the algorithm, and it just tosses it.
Exactly. But it gets worse. Let's assume the jobs he's applying to are actually real. Because right now, about 1 in 5 listings on major job boards, they're what we call ghost jobs.
Ghost jobs, like fake listings?
Basically, it's a posting the company has zero intention of actually filling. They leave them up to look like they're growing or to keep their overworked employees thinking help is on the way.
That is so toxic.
Listen to this. One survey found that 93% of HR professionals admit to posting ghost jobs at least sometimes. 93%!
That is horrible. So David is burning all this emotional energy, writing cover letters for jobs that literally don't exist. Nobody's ignoring him. He's just talking to an empty room.
Exactly. He's yelling into the void. So week 6 rolls around, reality really sets in, and he finally sits down with his wife Sarah to figure out the safety net.
Okay, well, he paid into unemployment, right? That's what it's there for. At least that should cover the mortgage for a few months while he figures this out.
You would think so, right? But unemployment insurance right now is basically a zip code lottery. It entirely depends on what state you happen to live in.
What do you mean? It's not standard?
Not even close. If you live in Washington state, your maximum weekly benefit is around $1,150. But if you live in Mississippi, it's $235.
$235 a week? You can spend that on a single Target run and still walk out wondering what you forgot to buy.
Exactly. Same job loss, same circumstances, but one person gets 5 times more just because of where their house sits. Now, David is in Texas, so his max is $560 a week.
Okay, 560, that's better?
It sounds okay until you remember his old paycheck was $2,700 a week. He's replacing roughly 20% of his income. And, oh, here's the kicker. Unemployment benefits are fully taxable.
Oh, come on.
Yep, next April, the IRS is going to ask for their share of the money that was barely covering his groceries. And honestly, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through UI paperwork, that isn't even the moment that breaks David.
What breaks him?
The moment that breaks him comes 2 days later when Sarah opens an email from their insurance company because something changed that nobody is talking loudly enough about. The enhanced subsidies that made marketplace health insurance affordable, they expired. Congress didn't extend them.
Wait, they just let them expire?
Just let them die. So overnight, premiums more than doubled. The quote for a benchmark family plan through the marketplace comes in at $2,180 a month.
Oh, Frank, stop. $2,000 a month for health insurance?
Yeah, Sarah does the math in her head twice before she accepts it's real. That is over $26,000 a year just for basic coverage right after her husband lost his job.
No. What about COBRA, the program where you keep your old employer's plan?
Well, they look at COBRA next, but remember, you have to pay the full cost, plus a 2% admin fee. The average COBRA premium for a family plan right now is $2,294 a month.
So that's almost $28,000 a year. That's the cost of a brand new Toyota Corolla every single year, just so your kids can go to the doctor.
Yep. Sarah gets a migraine that night. David sleeps on the couch because he can't stop running the numbers. Let me show you what their actual budget looks like, because this is where the math gets intensely personal.
Okay, let's hear it.
David got 8 weeks of severance, which leaves him with about $14,000 net. That's his runway. His Texas unemployment after taxes is maybe $1,900 a month. His mortgage is $3,200. If they keep COBRA, health insurance is $2,294.
So mortgage and insurance alone, that's almost $5,500.
Add utilities, car payments, groceries, and 2 kids in elementary school, they are burning through about $7,800 a month, but their total income, counting David's unemployment and Sarah's part-time nursing paycheck, is only about $3,800.
Horrified whisper. They're underwater by $4,000 every single month.
Exactly. The severance covers 3.5 months. Their 9K savings covers another 2. That's almost 6 months total, which, remember, is exactly how long the average unemployed person is looking for work right now.
Stressed. They're going to run out of money exactly when he might find a job, if he's lucky.
And this is the exact moment, staring at that $4,000 monthly deficit, where people panic. This is where they make the decision that quietly destroys their financial life for the next decade.
So David looks at his 401k. He's got $185,000 sitting in there. And he thinks to himself, maybe I just pull $25,000 out to buy us more runway, just to sleep at night.
No, David, don't do it.
This is where we are breaking records, by the way. 6% of 401k participants took a hardship withdrawal recently. That is triple the pre-pandemic rate. Triple.
Because they have no other choice.
Right. But here is the brutal math. When you pull $25,000 out of a 401k before you're 59 and a half, you pay your income tax on it plus a 10% penalty. So David takes out $25K, and after the taxes and penalties, he walks away with maybe $15,000.
Wait, he just paid 10 grand to access his own money?
Yes, but that's not even the real tragedy. Here is the part the online calculator doesn't show him. That $25,000, if he had just left it alone at a 7% average return over the next 25 years, it would have grown to roughly $136,000.
Oh, God.
So the real cost of that withdrawal isn't $10,000. It's closer to $120,000 in future wealth that his family will never, ever see. Job loss doesn't just put a gap in your resume. It puts a hole in your future that keeps getting bigger long after you've found a new job.
He's basically borrowing from his 65-year-old self at the worst possible interest rate.
Exactly. And while David is crunching these numbers at his kitchen table, something else is happening to him. The research on long-term unemployment, it's grim. After 6 months, nearly 1 in 5 people are clinically depressed. Husbands without full-time work are 33% more likely to get divorced within a year.
Because the stress, it just eats you alive. You're snapping at your spouse over the dishwasher, but it's not about the dishwasher. It's about feeling like you've lost your identity.
Yes, a job gives you time structure, social contact, purpose. And when you lose it, you lose all of that at once. But I need you to pay attention to this next part, because this is why this time feels so much worse.
Worse than the 2008 crash or the pandemic?
Different. In 2008, the government deployed a $787 billion stimulus. In 2020, they sent out over $5 trillion. Stimulus checks, an extra $600 a week on top of unemployment, eviction moratoriums, a child tax credit that basically cut child poverty in half.
Right. Student loans were paused, Medicaid enrollment was continuous. There was a net to catch you.
And today, none of that exists. The safety net wasn't destroyed in some dramatic political vote. It was just allowed to expire, program by program.
While everyone was distracted by everything else in the news.
Exactly. It's a slow, bureaucratic unwinding. By the time people noticed they needed the net wasn't there anymore. David didn't vote for this, you didn't vote for this, but it's gone.
But why is it hitting white-collar workers so hard this time? I mean, software engineers like David used to be the safest people in the room. What changed?
Well, remember those 43 job applications of David's that got filtered out by an algorithm? That wasn't an accident. And it's not just HR software, because there is a new variable that didn't exist in any previous downturn. And this is the part that should actually scare you. A Stanford study recently looked at payroll data across millions of workers. Employment for young software developers, it has dropped 20% since late 2022.
20%? Just gone?
Gone. Meanwhile, workers over 30 in those same exact jobs saw employment growth. The AI displacement is not random. It is targeted directly at entry and mid-level white-collar work.
So it's eating the exact kind of work that most of us built our entire careers around.
Exactly.
Microsoft saved $500 million in its call centers last year alone by replacing humans with AI. The CEO of Anthropic, one of the biggest AI companies on Earth, said publicly that AI could wipe out 50% of all entry-level white-collar jobs within 5 years.
Wait, the guy building the thing is saying it's going to wipe out half the jobs?
Saying it out loud. Oh, and David's old company, the one that laid him off with that 15-minute sync, they just announced they're replacing 3 analyst roles on his old team with AI.
Wow, that's just dark. So where does this leave David? Does he ever recover from this?
Well, David is gonna be okay. 8 months in, he finally lands a new role. But the pay is $118,000. That's a $22K pay cut from what he was making.
Ouch. And with inflation, that hurts.
It's called wage scarring. Research suggests he may never fully catch up to the earnings trajectory he was on before the layoff. That $22,000 gap, compounded over 25 years of retirement contributions, it is roughly $500,000 in future wealth just wiped out.
$500,000 because of a 15-minute calendar invite.
Yep. But the day after his new job offer comes in, David does one small thing. He opens a high-yield savings account. He puts $200 in it and sets up an automatic $400 transfer every 2 weeks.
Building the runway.
Building the door. It's not dramatic. It's not going to make him a millionaire overnight, but it means the next time a calendar invite pops up on a Tuesday morning at 9:47, he has something on the other side of that door that isn't pure panic.
Because that's the reality now, right? The people who survive these economic shocks intact aren't necessarily the ones with the massive salaries.
Not at all. They are the ones who built the door before they needed it. The quiet, boring work you do when things are totally fine is literally the only thing that protects you when they stop being fine.
And if you're waiting until your own 9:47 a.m. Tuesday to start, you are already 3 steps behind.
Exactly. The rules of job loss have changed. The rules of preparation haven't. They're just finally the only thing that matters.
If this changed how you're thinking about your job, your savings, or your next move, drop a comment below and tell us which part hit you the hardest.
And if you haven't subscribed to Talk and Wonder yet, now is the time, because David's story isn't over, and neither is yours.